Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of Talking About. Whoever thought we'd get to episode 12? This week, we're going to be talking about audio. We're going to be talking about audio engineering. We're going to be talking about studio engineering, studio sound, and live sound in theatre. And who better to talk to than the klpac senior technical manager, Michael Thomas. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Joe.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. You've had a long history, haven't you? How many years have you been involved in audio?
Well, it's been like 30 years now since I first started back in 1990.
30.
30, yes.
Yeah. And where did you start, Mike?
Well, I started first with a recording studio here owned by the #1 jazz musician at that time, which is Michael Veerapen.
Yes, I remember those days very well.
Yeah, I've seen you. I mean, you've been there many times.
Yes.
And
that was Scat
Productions. Yes, correct. And what happened here was that I was offered a job there as a junior engineer. Junior. And you know, Joe, those days being a recording engineer, you got to learn to make coffee first.
Of course. And you got to learn to make not just coffee, but good coffee.
Oh yeah. And you get criticized on your coffee every single day until you get it right. Well, I used to make loads of coffee for Mike, especially working late nights with him. Yeah. And in 1990 I joined the recording studio.
Mike must have been a very good mentor, yeah?
Oh, he's like a big brother to me.
Yeah.
He's even more a brother to me than my own brothers.
Okay.
just to be, open about it. He actually guided me a lot, spiritually and also mentally, being able to handle situations. And being in a recording studio can be quite...
It can be quite stressful.
Yes.
Especially when you have ridiculous clients demanding ridiculous things.
Yeah, exactly.
Not knowing what they're talking about.
Exactly. And when producers come in with their requisitions on, I want to open the window and be able to listen to birds singing.
Yes.
Those kind of things. And I believe that's when I first met you in early 90s, when you yourself were doing a lot of productions.
I was doing productions, and I was also doing a lot of recording.
Yes, exactly. I'll never forget the time when you always walk into the studio and talk about Liverpool.
Ah, well, I'm still doing that 30 years later, Mike.
Yes. And I remember hanging around the bar area in the studio that we used to talk about football, and used to joke a lot in the early days.
Yeah. But Liverpool is no joking matter, you know that, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's football.
It's a very serious matter.
But you know that I'm always on the fence.
I know. Yes. So you started with Mike. When? What year was it?
1990.
Right, okay.
Yeah, right up to 2003. I was there for 13 years.
You were very loyal, huh?
Well, I had a good mentor, like you mentioned earlier. And what happened here was that I learned a lot there. And the opportunities that I got from Mike was extremely a lot. I am here today partially because of him. Him pushing me to do other things.
What you learned at that stage was purely studio sound, right?
Exactly.
Recording, mixing, engineering, but all inside a studio.
Yes.
You had not yet been exposed to live events so much?
On the first year, yes, I was more onto the studio side of it. What happened here was that Mike actually put an exam for the three engineers, main engineers that were there, and I believe you know all three of them.
Yes.
With surprise, I passed the test compared to the other two senior engineers who were there, and Mike was very amazed with that. That's when he started pushing me into mixing.
Okay.
And he also, he brought in a senior sound engineer from Australia, from a studio called Studio 301, to come and train me here for mixing.
Right.
Back in our studio in here, in Scat Productions.
Yes.
And what happened here was that I also worked with other local artists. I sound engineered Zainal Abidin Hijau from front to end. And then I also engineered other albums like Jarat Singh, Francisca Peters' last album, and not forgetting Sudirman. I was recording his
Yes.
last album when he passed
Because
on.
Mike did some composing for Sudirman, right?
Yes, he did. He did
Yes.
1,000 Million Smiles.
Yes,
for
1,000 Million
Sudirman.
Smiles. Yeah.
And that story alone, I believe
Yeah.
Mike would have already mentioned.
So your name is probably on quite a number of recording artists' albums and
Yes,
as
it
sound
has been.
engineer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've also been to the AIM Award
Right.
for what they call the chance given
Yes.
to mix and also engineer the album itself, like Amir Yusuf. You know
Yes,
Amir Yusuf?
yes, of course, I remember
Old
Amir,
friend,
yeah,
Amir Yusuf. And then I moved on. Then Mike told me, Mike actually had a chat with me. Then Mike has said, why not you move on instead of just mixing for studio? That is when I had the first opportunity, Joe, to do the show that you directed, which is Girl Guides in Putra.
Oh my God!
So I engineered that.
Yes, because Mike was involved in that too.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
And
yes.
that was my very first experience doing
Outside
a theatre
event
sound.
stuff. Yeah,
Theatre with
that
a
was
radio.
huge,
That was
wasn't
huge,
it? That
yes. I
that
think
production.
that had like 40 musicians on
Yes,
stage with
yes.
orchestra, and we also had studio recording embedded, and
Yes.
you know.
We
they
also
going
had
out.
a cast of thousands, all the girl guides and
Yes,
everything.
exactly, and that opened my mind a bit, and actually a lot. And I thought to myself, studio sound versus outdoor sound is totally two different ball game,
Yeah.
and that actually opened up my perspective over the both
Do
sides.
you have a preference, Mike?
Well, if you want easy studio sound,
Yeah, that's easy.
that's
for
easy.
you.
Easy,
For
easy,
you,
yeah.
it's easy,
It's because you record everything raw and you mix
Yeah.
it easily.
Right.
When it comes to live, sound changes every single day.
Yeah, and the challenges are very different,
Yeah.
right?
And yes, it is. And even the microphone itself changes the way it behaves every single
Yes.
day. So as a sound engineer being trained in a studio, that's where you learn how to listen to the same sound over and over again. And I used to sleep with the Vivaldi being switched on in the night, and I sleep with the Vivaldi playing in the background with my mini compo playing it over and over until morning every single night.
Why? Why Vivaldi?
I loved Vivaldi.
Oh, right, okay.
And I used to mix a lot of these commercials, especially gun hills, and that needed that kind of mixing,
Yes.
what they call skills to be able to mix that kind of sound. And working with Mike, I did a lot of orchestra sounds where he used to orchestrate a lot of music for that, and we'll get like very short time to mix, and sometimes we churn out like 3-4 jobs a day. And that's where I learned to do fast mixing.
Right.
And don't waste time on doing sound checks too long, but then you actually make sure that the line is working. Even in live, make sure that the line is working, then you know what exactly you're supposed to get.
Sure.
So it's a process which I learned from studio into live, where that's when I realized that, you know what, don't waste too much of time doing sound check when you know that the drum is tuned properly. You're supposed to get the right sound by amplifying it, or even any other instrument in this case. And I worked with some really nice professionals along the way, people like Luis Pragasam and Rick Omar, who does very good drum tuning and sound itself. And I learned from them. It's a collaboration with also musicians where I need to know what they want for their sound, and I actually do the amplification for them. And then going back to where you asked me just now with regards to live sound, the first live sound that I did with you directing the Girl Guides was an eye-opener for me. Then I went into even further to doing live sounds in hotels. And
of course that's different again, isn't it?
That's different again,
Totally
because it's a
different
closed
experience.
ballroom, and you get different ballrooms with different kind of acoustics.
And of course, sometimes the acoustics can be quite cold, quite flat.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be quite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all the challenges which I actually learned from each and one ballroom, and to the extent that because those days we had very few sound engineers who actually are experienced via School of Hard Knocks. Where nowadays you get a lot of students from the schools.
Yeah.
So we had to find ways to actually work around, and we were in a situation where you actually have a checklist of which hotel ballrooms are the best to work with, you know. But they used to pay very well those
Did
days.
they?
Oh yeah.
Well, you got to go where the money is, right?
Oh yeah, because for me it was the experience then. But then surprisingly, then was when you actually got better pay compared to nowadays. But for me, the value of the experience and a person like Mike pushing me to go forward was something that really opened my experience and also my study in the engineering itself when I went into live
you've also worked in very small spaces, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And I wonder how you control everything in such a small space that may hold about 100 people or sometimes even 50 people. How you are able to control the sound so that it doesn't boom, and we know that it's not the actual live sound you're hearing, but it's a sound that you want them to hear, which is coming through the speakers.
This is the bit that is tricky. I've also experimented this with Mike's band before.
Yes.
That's when I learned that this word that I use is collaboration. Sound engineer and also the band members, where everyone should be able to control their own volumes, not to be in a situation where I'll play louder than you. When they start doing that, that's when a mix within the stage area becomes messy.
Right.
And a sound engineer will have a lot of trouble trying to get a good sound. And when I do sound for clubs and so on also, I'll actually tell them, you have to work with me. For me to make the band sound good, you guys have to work with me so that I tell you what needs to be loud.
But sometimes you've refused to work with some bands, right?
Yes, I have, because some bands, they refuse to listen.
Right.
I've had cases where the clubs have also stopped using them because I've made a complaint with regards to their volume control on stage. The biggest problem I usually get is from the drummer and the guitarist.
Right. I mean, they may as well not have a sound engineer, right? They
might as well not even have an amplifier there, so because they tend to go louder and louder.
Right.
But then later on, those bands that I worked with, they tend to understand that I have a good reason for it and a good motive behind it, so that they sound best for the audience and so that everybody can enjoy the music. What happens here is that that's the word that I use, sound engineer band collaboration.
Right.
I think recently when I did some sound over here too, I've had that experience with the bands that we have worked with here, and that actually helps. So my job as a sound engineer becomes much more easier. That's when I can sit down and enjoy the band, enjoy the singing, enjoy everything, including the crowd being around and being able to cheer, because that's the vibe that actually comes back from the crowd or the audience, that actually shows that the enjoyment is there. So it works actually three ways: sound engineer, band, and also the audience itself.
But apart from the collaboration that you talk about, which is very important in all aspects of theatre and entertainment, that collaboration is extremely important. The other important factor I would think would be the quality of the equipment that you have. How much of a difference does that make?
Well, frankly speaking, in a lot of ways, in a lot of my personal experience, it also becomes a situation where it is not about the driver, it's always about a car. That's what some people may think. But for me personally, it's always about the driver, but not the car.
Okay. Interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, it's always about the driver, how the driver drives the car. Because to me, I've worked with the cheapest console you can find to do sound with, and that's where I began. And to an extent, until the last few years, I've had chance to work with cheaper mixers compared to when the club was much happier with my sound, and I say, can I demand for something better for a change? Then at least, make the band sound even better.
Right.
Then they agreed upon it. So when the budget was there, of course, whenever there's a better budget, we can, of course, invest on better equipment. But then a lot of times I worked with cheaper equipment.
Okay. But Mike, what is the importance of what I believe to be a very important piece of equipment, microphones? I mean, surely there's got to be a difference between the quality and the end result of using good microphones, quality microphones.
Yeah, that's what maybe you're referring to earlier. And sometimes in certain cases, like a microphone, a good vocal microphone will really help the singer. But of course, again, a mechanic needs to know how to use his tools. If a singer also doesn't know how to make use of the microphones, pull and adjust and things like that, may also be a problem at times. Some experience of mine, I've given some singers some cheap microphones like the Shure SM58, but
Yes.
then because of their training and their experience of being a singer, they have given good quality voices.
Okay.
Of course, the better you have, the better it sounds.
Of course.
But then there's also the basics of it, of actually being able to know how to use your tool is very important.
So are you saying that you can have a really good microphone and an inexperienced singer who will screw the sound up?
Possibly.
Or on the other hand, you could have a normal day-to-day type of microphone and a very good singer that he can make it sound like $1 million.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
With the assistance of the
Not
engineer, of course.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
What I call not necessarily a really cheap microphone, but at least a fairly good enough microphone.
Yes.
We call it the lower range in price,
Right.
but then still a well-known brand. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then we also have sometimes we have certain singers singing on a good microphone. When they do a high pitch or a loud voice, they tend to not pull the mic away, but sing into the mic. But they do not realize that they're actually distorting the diaphragm in the microphone. That will also cause a bad sound.
So it's also in the execution of
Yes.
how we do things. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
The usage of the microphone and the
Exactly.
usage of the equipment. You've worked on many productions in theatre since. When did you join us in theatre? How long ago?
I've joined klpx since 2006.
2006.
Yes, April.
Wow, that's how many years? 14?
14.
14 years. 14 good years, would you say?
14 good challenging years.
Yeah,
But I
challenging.
would say it's good a learning curve because
Yes.
it's a different ball game totally.
Yeah. How I always marvel at when we, for instance, when we do complicated musicals, for instance, where you have like a cast of say 20 or 30, you have a band or an orchestra, and the engineer is, I mean, the mixing of the voice and the music, and making sure the mic is turned on. That's where you divide the responsibilities, is it? Or
Nowadays, yes, we do.
yes.
In my early days, we never had the chance because one engineer works out
Right,
everything. But then it became.
But
a
it's quite
situation-
scary, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. Because you got to split your mind in a way that you got to be able to mix the music, the instruments, and also the vocals or the dialogues along the way. And personally, for me, the most difficult sound to do ever is actually having radio mics with having radio mics in musical.
Okay.
And that has been the biggest challenge. And not any engineer would want to step in and take over and just do the job. And as you know, there are very few engineers who are willing to take on the job and actually do it. But we can always work around and be able to, share the load. If you have two engineers on a big production, in this case, one will take care of the sound and another one can take care of just the vocal mics and so on. But then they have to be able to read their minds. Each another have to have their own set of signals or be able to understand what each another want as a final product of sound.
How important is it, in your opinion, Mike, that I mean, nowadays it's not uncommon to have technicians who come in off the street, right, have had no training, and as you mentioned earlier, they learn by the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
But how important is it, do you think, for them to have a solid technical knowledge of their equipment?
A certain amount of knowledge will be helpful, but the thing is, like klpx, like us, we actually offer that kind of training over here if they wanted to. Of course, to be very clear, it's a win-win situation where we allow internship for newcomers to come and see how our technicians work and be able to catch a thing or two from there, and we'll see how we can go forward with that. But very importantly, it's also an attitude matter that we're talking about here, and a character where if a technician comes in and being able to actually be a technician and just carry things and just hook up things because somebody has to press a button and tell them do this and do that. But we do not want that. We want people who are more, they are more hungry for more knowledge.
More knowledge, yeah.
And also put in their own personal effort and say, I want to learn this. I want to learn lighting or sound or any other technical matters in this situation. These are the kind of people that we are looking at. These are the kind of people that we are also hungry for, and be able to put the extra effort and extra hours to be able to put in their time and effort.
And it's difficult to find these people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I wonder, I cannot understand why. Maybe they make too much money being freelancers, or I don't know.
In a lot of cases, I personally believe that yes, money is one thing, but then somehow or other being a roadie in this case, the word is used as roadie and technician out there, they get paid by the day, where they get like maybe a couple of hundred or maybe 300. I'm not sure the exact going rate. Somehow or other they like to be told to do the job, and you want me to carry speakers? Okay, I'll carry speakers for you. You put it there? Okay, I'll put it there. But then the thing is that it's all about, because there's more to than just carrying speakers. You would want to know, what does this speaker do, or what does that microphone do, or what does this mixer do, or how can I make use of this mixer to produce something great. There are very few people who actually have this kind of mindset with the character that we are looking for. In fact, we have one good technician who actually has come very far, and I believe you will agree with me. It's also Madan, who has been working with us for like 10 years.
Yeah, and
from zero, because of his effort.
He's become a superstar almost. Yes,
he's doing everything.
Yeah,
he's doing everything now, from sound to rigging.
But people like that are rare, aren't they? Rare. People
they are
like
very
that?
Rare. You can't find people like this.
Let me ask you something else, Mike, because I've just been given the wind up. Let me ask you one other thing. The transition, because a lot of people or students of sound mainly concentrate on studio sound, right? Yeah. Like recording and mixing, and then if they come into a place like klpac or any other venue, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So how long do you think it would take a reasonably intelligent graduate of a sound or an audio school to acclimatize and to adapt to working in a theatre?
Okay, very simple. In a situation like klpac, we usually have a little requisition where or is also a good learning situation for every single interns or even technicians who come in, where we want them to learn all three areas, which is lighting, sound, and also rigging, which is a good thing for them because they learn all three areas. But of course, with the exception that they have one main area, which is sound, which they will actually have to go through the rules and regulations again, and plus they got to learn their car, how to drive their car over here, because every single venue will have a different car in this case, and they will need some time to actually learn that. But the speed of learning things is always again based on their character and attitude and how much effort they put in themselves. And they also got to put this thing in their mind that states that I'm not here just as a sound engineer or a lighting engineer, but I'm here as a technical crew who collaborates with the rest of the team and being able to work in all the three different areas. That is the difficult bit to do for them. And a lot of them do not accept the fact that they got to learn all three areas.
Well, that's the way of the world these days.
Yeah, but then you and me, we know very well that theatre doesn't work that way.
That's because we've been around a bloody long time.
And at times, even if I have to climb, I'll climb. At this age, I still do that.
I'm getting too old to climb, okay?
Not you, but then I still have to at times. And I just did that last week. And, and it's all right. At the end of the day, that's what we have.
If it's there to be done, it's got to be done.
Yeah, it's got to be done. Things has to be get done.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for joining us this week. It's been quite an enlightening little conversation. So thank you. That was Talking About with Michael Thomas. Take care. We look forward to seeing you next week. I don't know who's next week, but when it comes, you'll know. Thank you.